to the High Vibe Zone. I am so excited for today. My guest, this man is amazing. And we are going to be talking about something that is really interesting. So if this is your first time joining us in the High Vibe Zone, just welcome. Let us know where you're coming from. Send us some love in the chat, in the comments. Just say hey. But I'm so excited to introduce my guest, Darren Sprinkle. How you doing?
I'm great. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Of course. You are, I don't want to jump ahead of everything, but you are just, I feel very happy and like comfortable and just safe whenever I talk to you. And I've only spoken to you, I think, twice.
Oh, wow.
And I think also we probably, maybe we will get into it, but like hearing your story, hearing how you think about things, and just knowing more about what you do, I just know that you are just a very good human. And I think that's where that comes from. So I'm really excited to have you in the High Vibe Zone today.
Thank you so much, Charisse. I appreciate that because, a lot of times I get a vibe from people or people get a vibe from me in public where they've told me I'm intimidating or something, probably because I have some pain in my eyes sometimes, or maybe I'm grimacing, but, when I heard those words, it really felt great. So thank you for honoring me in that way. And I want to be seen as a safe person, right? I want to be seen as an advocate and a friend. And so, and I feel that way highly about you. And that's why I started, following your show. And that was because it's important, the work you're doing and the kind of love and vibe you're putting out there every time is so cool. I love it. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. See, already kicking it off with the high vibrations. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so Darren, we do something very special in the High Vibe Zone every time I pull a card and I shuffle, and I don't know what the card's gonna say, but whatever it is, we talk a little bit about it before we dive into whatever it is that we are going to talk about. So as I shuffle here.
Where'd you find the cards?
These, I think, came off of Amazon, and they are called Encouraging Words of the Day. So sometimes I mainly pull them in the High Vibe Zone, but sometimes when I'm like, okay, where am I at today? I need a card. I'll pull one, and I'm like, okay, that's the one for today. Okay, so I pulled one. I don't know what it's gonna say. Let's see what it says. See possibilities everywhere. I can't really say that. Oh, there we go. See possibilities everywhere, which might be really interesting given that we're talking about education today in that way. So what does that mean to you, see possibilities everywhere?
I think initially I want other people to see the possibilities in themselves. And if we all can see our own possibilities, how that changes, that's part of our topic today.
Yeah.
How we're all different. And really what as a kid, people would tell you, hey, you can do anything you put your mind to. And a lot of us kind of hit the ceiling and didn't quite get there, or we did and we didn't, and it wasn't the way it was. But that there's always possibilities and dreams within us if we let go of other people's ideas about ourselves. And so that is what I love, the idea that I can have my own ideas about what's new and I can change. I'm 42. I can have a new life starting today even. And so can you or anyone else, despite what is behind you or what you've overcome or what you haven't done.
Right.
That's what possibilities are to me, I guess. They are everywhere because they're inside of each one of us, despite how hard life is too.
Yeah, you bring up a really great point, and I love the perspective that you shared with it's in us. Like there are possibilities in us, and as you share that, it sparks in me just the word that it's not even in there, but like I think about the opposite of possibilities, which tend to be impossible, things that are impossible. And I remember hearing somewhere that we as humans haven't lived long enough to use the word impossible. So, see possibilities everywhere makes a lot of sense. And it can be in every area of our lives. It can be financial, it could be in relationships, it could be in education. It's like there's no one track way. And everybody does have it inside of us. I mean, I look at my little humans and they're just like, I want to do this. I want to be that. I want to do this. Yeah. And it's like, it's all possible. There are no barriers until we start to give in to what society tells us we are and labels us, is what I feel is, happens. And then we start to see our possibilities shrink as we're struggling to conform to a norm, which I think is, this card really does set us up really nicely for what we're going to be talking about.
One of the worst things we can do that will tie us into this is when someone has something, an idea, a possibility inside, and they go, man, I'm going to be a violinist. I'm going to be this or that. What our world has been in the habit of, and I should say American world, because Europe isn't as nasty about this. The first thing I see parents do is, you can't make money at that. How are you going to monetize that? How could you go to art school and then not go to business school first? That doesn't make sense. And what we have backwards is that each person is different. And you can't systemize a human being that's different. It doesn't make sense. And so crushing a possibility around a dollar bill is disgusting, right? So don't do that to your kids, y'all. I have done that to my kids, and I'm undoing it. I say, hey, when you hear that in life, and it sounded like what Dad said years ago, I was wrong. Don't do that to yourself. Yeah. Chase what makes you feel better tomorrow and okay today. Be yourself today. I
absolutely love that, because when I met my husband, when we were dating, he comes from a worker family. So his father worked, grandfather worked, like they worked their they worked their trade until they retired or moved on. And my husband had that same mentality. He was like, I'm just going to work this 9-to-5 job and that's kind of it. And I was like, wait a minute, don't you realize how talented you are? Like, my husband is he can fix anything. He's very smart at taking things apart, putting things together. And it was through just years of us being together that he finally was like, I'm going to try this. And he just would do an amazing job. And then all of a sudden, things just started opening up. Like, he now is an amazing pit master and can smoke amazing meat. He's working on renovating an RV. He doesn't have a 9-to-5. He has a whatever I'm kind of feeling. And what's great is I do the same thing. And mine is just more targeted towards, okay, I want to do this specific thing. But if I didn't want to do it, I could go do a million other things that I feel like maybe I would do really, really great at, but at least I would try, because there are possibilities everywhere. So
absolutely.
I love that you are reframing this for your kids, because, I think when I look at my little humans, I don't see what I believe society wants me to see for them in like a trade or a profession. I just see little people with a bunch of light, and wherever they want to take that light, I'm there to help them navigate. If they see mom and dad as entrepreneurs and they want to do that, great. I have a son that was like, nope, I want to get a really good engineering job and just code. Awesome. If that's what you want to do, then do it. I have another son that's like, I want to play in the NBA. Awesome. My daughter wants to go be an astronaut or do something with the stars. And I'm like, awesome. Whatever it is that you're trying to do, let me position myself to get out of the way and just support, and not be like, well, how much, let's look at that salary and like that, because like you said, I was telling Tony last week, I was like, modern day slavery is debt, is really conforming into that mold that we were told, the American dream, which turns out to be a nightmare.
I think modern day slavery is between your ears now, because people make themselves work 24/7, and that is slavery. And then if you don't, you have shame, which is the whip. And then when you don't have it on, you hear all this, look at depression, anxiety on the rise.
Yeah.
That's just bad self-talk. I'm not saying that's why people have that, but in that lies, you're not good enough. You didn't do it today. Like all of that lies in those things, and another thing that's hugely important. I think that young people know, especially if you're 30, like you're probably going to fail. And you know what? Have 2 or 3 careers. Who has one career? It's not 1910 anymore. It's not. You know what? I tell my kids, I've probably had 10 different careers that I've done well at. I've learned them. I started building houses because I was like, I want to learn how to build houses. And so anyone can get paid now to go learn things.
Right.
And instead they go to work to get money. Well, what if you go to work to bless the owner and to learn from them? And then in 2 years, leave. That's okay. We're not ever meant to just be stagnant and lose our creativity and never do anything again. So work should be part of our play. It should be part of how we challenge and experience this earth we're on. That you get new community every job you go to, right? Look at this. Our jobs have changed. Look at the new communities developing today out of that. You and I are part of that. And so don't be afraid to lose a job, to get fired. Who got fired last year? Me. And you know why? Because I was a mess. I was a mess. I had a lot of health problems and I was a mess. I'm not today. But it's okay to lose a job and to get back on top. And it's never personal. If you go away from it and go, those people didn't love me from the beginning, how could it be personal?
Right.
Yeah,
you bring up a really good point. I love this. Work should be a part of our play. Absolutely. And I think it was more recent that I started to incorporate more play into my day, where my kids are the best players ever. They can play all the time. So I just do whatever they do and hang out with them and remind myself that if there is a challenging situation or something I'm trying to figure out, I don't need to pressurize myself to produce anything. And I can just play it into existence sometimes. I'm like, oh, wow, that was a really great break from looking at a screen. And now I have exactly what I need to continue on with what it is that I want to do.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Amen to that.
I want to just set us up here really quick because I'm so excited to dive into this conversation. So last week, Tony and I had the topic of, is racism profitable? And when I initially asked that question to myself, I was like, 100% makes a lot of sense. But then I wanted to think a little bit more about it. And then I had an in the shower moment. And when Tony and I were talking about it, his answer was 100, yes, absolutely it is. And then my answer was, the lack of education is profitable. Because when you think about racism, it only exists in a space of ignorance and lack of education, because it makes no sense. It's like, I'm going to not only separate you from the human race, but I'm going to give you an ethnicity, which was created by another person. And I'm going to hate you because of the way that you look or speak or the skin tone. It's just like that does not logically make any sense. So there definitely is, there are ways that education has supported that type of thinking. And so when I talked to you, I knew that this was a topic that I wanted to share with you because you had shared something that was really interesting to me in terms of the educational component, really kind of starting with our school system. And we just kind of had a really good vibe on that. So I want to just hand it over to you and so the lack of education is profitable. Where does that all start from?
So I mean, you go back in history of how the school system started,
Mhm.
and if we were on a prairie and you owned a farm and I owned a farm, we'd be like, hey, we got to have a school. And some of those were really great because it was community and like, how do we raise our children together?
Right.
But something happened when it went to a larger systematic system,
Mhm.
because as soon as you do that, you enter someone who's going, who's going to buy this building? Who's going to pay the teacher? Okay, then what? Now, if I'm putting in the money and I don't like what they're teaching, how about I go say something to the teacher and go, do you like your job? You want to stay here? And then so you have people in history that are not in the education because they love children and care like you and I. You have teachers at the bottom, and then you have control of money and resources at the top. And that's always our problem globally, right? You always have a few people that we never really know who's behind the curtain, and you never really trust it. And then you have a group of people that'll jump in and go, I believe the news. It must be right.
Right.
I don't even trust that because I understand globally how this system works. And I'm like, I need a piece of that to understand, but they're not actually educating people either, right?
Right.
The news is like repeat high school. You want to listen to what everybody else is doing, go there.
Right.
It'll teach you how to not think and how to repeat what the world is doing. I'm not saying they're wrong, because I don't know anything about media because I've been out of it for a year right now.
Yeah.
So then I'm uneducated about it, so I shouldn't speak about it because maybe they've changed, maybe not. But what I found, what you're asking about, like the school system and how the seeds started, it was, I had some major health issues. I lost the vision in my left eye and had migraines for years. And part of coming out of that was dealing with stress. And I mean, some deep stuff, I had to do a lot of work, and I still do. And I'm a work in progress. But in the moment of that was my son, who's 16. I've had one of my older children ran away, was on drugs. And for a moment, we had this crazy turmoil, and I had to rescue and I'm not even going to say who, or, get this child out of the state to a place that could help.
Yeah.
And now they're okay. And then I saw another one of my kids not going through school and doing it because you're supposed to. And then senior year's over, and now let's party and like there was nothing there. 4 years of nothing. And then I see my youngest, who is going, why won't they teach me? And I'm like, and I'm going, what do you mean, son? Talk to me more about that. And then we start looking, and, then you start looking at, and then I research a little bit about Washington history in the school books. And then I read a book about Chief Seattle, and I'm going, these two histories are not even close. The one history in the book was so short, and it totally washed out all of the schooling that they did to Indian people, that the schooling, which was really abuse and washing out of culture, right? The residential school system. And so I saw that happening. And then I saw his teachers telling him that you cannot make it in this world unless you have a degree and do this, and you'll never make a living. And then my son is arguing with his teachers, which we don't encourage, but he's saying, my father makes 5 to 6 times more than you. How could you say that? He's, and I'm like, hey, son, we don't argue like that. Even though you're right, why are you so upset about this? Right. So instead of getting involved with the school, because they don't want to talk, they don't want to discuss, they don't want to change, I realized I got to talk to my son here. And in that moment, we realized this person needs to learn how to learn on their own, because school was not helping him to learn. And as soon as we pulled him out of there, we saw his mental health go through the roof. Actually, that's a lie. He did great for like 2 months, had a big, deep depression because of disconnection and all of that. But here we are a year later. He goes to the gym on his own once or twice a day. He's reading on his own. He's researching things on his own. And if from the outside, my parents are going, what are you doing? He's doing nothing. Right. But, you know, he knows stuff about physics and black holes that I'll never know. So he's like sort of a ninja learner. I just keep giving him resources, you know. He's like, oh, you need Audible? Hell yeah, I'll get that for you. Anything you need to learn is important, because when he learns, then we debate. That doesn't happen at the school level, where they will encourage kids to be upset about what's going on now and tell us why you're upset.
Right.
Tell us the feeling and express it in a way that doesn't use the F word. Right. That's what you need to give people tools of expression. And then the whole class, let's just listen to one person today and then find out how deeply this person feels about a subject. Like, you don't see that happen. And then you have a room of 30 people, and the only one we're listening to is the teacher's point of view. That's dangerous.
Yeah.
I don't even know the teacher. Do you?
Right.
I don't know their history. I don't know what they're coming from.
Right.
And so that's what shifted in our household. And so my idea was, I'm not going to let my last kid go through the system like I did.
Right.
I just did it because I had to. And when I got out, then I learned how to learn. Now I know how to learn. Now I know how to take care of myself. But they could have taught me some skills. And I like to teach young people that, you know, if I have employees, I teach them, you're not here forever. You're not my employee. You are, where do you want to go? And so those things have to change too, is giving everybody tools, even when they're underneath you, to go, where are you going next? I'm glad you're here, but where are you going? You know? Well,
that last part that you said, giving people the tools, like, where are you going next? That's because when people are looked at as resources, you don't want those resources to go anywhere. So that's why there's not that dialogue continuously happening, because they're a resource. They are not an individual. They are part of whatever it is needed to continue what is happening, regardless of how it's affecting them. And we've seen that in the workplace. And, you know, you bring up, and I really appreciate you sharing that story, because it makes me think. I mean, my son is 16. He'll be 17 in a week or so. 17 in a week or so. And similar kind of, he's like, why are we learning this? Like, how is this helping me with anything? And it's getting harder and harder to give him an answer, because most of the stuff that he's learning, other than the fact that I basically said, regardless of whatever you do in life, there are going to be things that you are not going to want to do, but you're going to have to learn how to work through those things that you don't want to do. Use this as that practice, because once you create some discipline in terms of, okay, I know I don't want to do this, but can I change my perspective a bit on how I'm doing this, is basically where I'm at with him. But we've homeschooled all of them at different levels. And, you know, I think to have one, and I know schools try to accommodate for different types of learning styles, but it's a system. It's not really created to support the individual. Kind of going back to something I pulled a little bit of notes on this, and talks about the modern day education system was designed to teach future factory workers to be punctual, docile, and sober. And as the industrialization changed the way we worked, it created the need for universal schooling, kind of what you talked about, that universal schooling. And so factory workers required a docile, agreeable worker who would show up on time and do whatever their manager told them to do. And it sounds like it's basically the school system set up to teach you how to work. Again, kind of going back to the story I shared with my husband. His grandfather worked the postal service. His dad worked at a creamery, and he was like, I'm going to work in carpentry for the rest of my life. And it's like set up, and he was always on time. He was there, like he was reliable. It was like this. And not to say that those change when you go off and do your own thing, but if the school system is setting us up to not be seen as individuals and more of a collective, it's like the mass will go where it's being directed. And I think that our world really does need more, I don't even know if it's abstract thinkers, but just more people that can critically think on their own, do the research on their own, and not be so afraid to be different, because people are wanting change. We want change. If you ask someone, do you want change? Absolutely, we want change. But nobody wants to be different around that change, because there's questions, there's persecution, there's isolation that comes in with that, which is really kind of hard to deal with. But when you connect with people like you and know that there are more people that really do think a little bit differently than what the system has shared, you start to be like, maybe I'm not as off as I thought I was when I came to this initial thought.
Well, the one thing that comes to mind is like, if you allow for that space gets filled, right? And I think you opened up space in your life, as did I.
Yeah.
And then new fresh people come into that space. If you are only going on your regular Facebook and you're only going to the regular places, going to the news where everyone else is, you're going to get the same result as everybody else. Yeah. If you stop that, I'm not saying don't do that. Do it if you feel, I don't know. I would say not even a desire, but I would say to people, start asking yourself, why are you doing the things you're doing? Is it a desire? Do you want to do that? Are you doing it because that's what mom and dad told you? Well, why did they do it? Why do you do? There's so many things in my life that I do that I'm learning. And as I step back and I realize that's systematic, I don't have to do that.
Right.
And then I can give my children permission to make a decision about their life instead of going, no, this is how you do it.
Exactly.
And that's hard to do as a parent, because when, I've come from the breed of, because I said so.
Yeah.
Both my wife and I are former Marines, and we're rough around the edges. And so in the beginning, we were very hard parents. Like, I wouldn't say hard, like we were never negative parents, like, yelling at the kids, but it was control. I didn't know to give space. I'm learning that now about, what do you need today? Like some days are just shit days.
Yeah.
And you're like, look, some days you just are meant to lay on the couch, and even kids need that. And instead you go, no, you have to go to Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
What if right now they just need to go outside and walk in the woods?
Right.
You've never asked them. I never have asked them. And so there just has to be space for individuals to be individuals, and to then to allow that to happen. That person has to honor themselves, and no one knows that as a global perspective, right? They're analyzing themselves based upon what they read or see on the outside. And so what you are doing is different than that. You're encouraging, why don't you analyze yourself on the inside? Why are you doing education? Why is racism still here? Ask yourself those questions.
Right. I love everything that you said. And it just has, for me, when I look at my humans, I'm just like, yes, I do that quite frequently. I remember actually growing up, my dad, one of the best memories I've had with my dad was I was in school and I would get called to the office, and it was like, call to the office to bring all your stuff. And I didn't know why. And I'd show up, my dad would be there to be like, I don't know, 1 or noon or something before school would end. And he'd be like, come on, let's go. And I'd like get in the car and I wouldn't know where we'd go. And we'd pull up to the movie theater. What? And yeah, like he would like take me out of school and just be like, we're going to the movies. and we would go
Man,
see a movie together. And I'm just like, and now that I think back on it, I'm like, oh my gosh. So now
that's
when
beautiful.
that like, and I was just like, wow, that's so cool. And it would be like, you know, because when you get called to the office, you automatically think you're in trouble for something. And then my dad shows up just kind of like stone faced. And then we get in the car. And then all of a sudden we pull up to like the Century 21 and he's just like, we're going to the movies. I'm like, what? This is so cool. And we'd watch like the most exciting movies. It wasn't like a little kids movie. We'd be in, and it was just so much fun. And you're right. So when I notice my little humans just not having a day, they're just like, I'm not. And I'm like, I'll just call the school and say, we're dealing with the family thing. And to them, I know they are very strict on absences, which is very interesting to me. But they need space too. They need they like you said, they need moments. My husband just started. I walk around barefoot pretty much all the time, but he's been getting more into earthing, or I think it's grounding or earthing. And so the other day I was walking the dog and I saw my husband with the kids and they were all barefoot. And he's like, I'm teaching them how to earth. And I was just like, that's science. And like today he's taking them to the zoo and like all of these like and I'm just like, this is where we're supposed to be. The world. And the other thought that I had was, you're getting all my thoughts today. The other thought that I had was, we're not meant to live and die in one space, in one place. Like, no. I don't think that doesn't feel, for me, that never felt right. Like, there's a guy he's an amazing dude, born in the house and lives in the house that he was born in. That does not, and I get the concept of having roots, but this world is so vast and so big. Even California, there's parts of California I've never seen. I've lived here all my life. I just feel like we've shortened our life by somehow not exploring different components of life and what's out there. And we just we subscribe to a very small portion. Like they say, I don't even know if this is real science anymore, where they talk about we only use 10% of our brain. And I wonder if that's because we only really see 10% of our life expand in front of us because of what,
right.
I wonder if that's what it is. And then something else you brought up, which is like the system, not questioning it. The birthing system came up for me.
Right.
I am so fascinated how, and I get it, like hospitals are great for pathology. Perfect for pathology. You got something wrong, an illness, something that like, go to a doctor. Like, go to a doctor. Pregnancy, there's nothing wrong with you. You are creating life. And they've found a way to institutionalize it. And I saw a stat the other day that someone posted up and said that 47% of Black women like die in birth or something around a stat like that. And I was like, well, are they taking into account the home births that happen?
Oh.
Because that stat is actually really skewed if they're just looking at hospital births and saying, okay, Black women, you have a higher rate of dying in birth, but in a home birth, you have a very, very low rate for a lot of things. So it was, where is this information coming from? And where is the safest place to give birth? And most people won't even educate themselves on the dualities of the modalities of care, home birth versus hospital birth. It's like
right.
Hospital seems the safest. When you look at the history of the hospital, it was all about experimenting on the woman. And it was, so when we look at the school system and our our education system and our healthcare system, it's like there's another side to that, which is holistic care, homeopathic care, things like that. And that requires us to be educated on both sides, kind of like what you were saying, not just reading one stream of collective consciousness, if you will.
Absolutely. I mean, and just think all the doctors and engineers, they're all in the system themselves. So, You can only trust them as far as, they're in the matrix. So, you look at that and go, so I had a neurologist we had been in discussions about disconnecting this eyeball, the one I'm looking at you with right now. I see you with the eyeball. He wanted to disconnect because I had severe pain for long term. Yeah. You know what the problem was with the pain? I had some stuff I had to sort out. If he had cut my eye off, it would have fixed zero. Right. Now I would not be able to see with the left eye, and then I'd have to deal with that emotional trauma of not having one eyeball. Right. And so, when people get all upset about the vaccine and that sort of thing, I have to wait until I feel inspiration now. That's my if it's not inspired, I won't do it. Yeah. I won't go there. And so right now I feel disconnected from that. And so I'm waiting because they have led me the wrong direction because they're in it. Right. And I don't mean like they're all subscribing to this belief or anything, but they're in a system that never worked for this guy. Yeah. The system works for a majority of people, maybe 30%. Right. Yeah. And then the rest need to get out of it, and it just doesn't work. And if you were to say that's the only way you could have a baby, you then interject fear into people's lives, and then they're afraid of their own body. I know girls, that my kids' friends that are pregnant, and they are afraid to have the baby now because of what the miseducation about what pain is. Like, our system is taught that pain, you should never have it. And if you have it, get rid of it immediately. Right. And if it lasts more than 5 days, you should be on something. Right. And I can tell you that almost killed me. So there's a lot of things like that don't work for everybody. Maybe they work for some, but give people the idea and and teach them how to investigate themselves first, and where am I going next? What community do I belong in? Right. Not why do I, like you said, my feet are here because my parents invited me back to Seattle 20 years ago, and I'm still here. I don't belong here. I ran away from home at 15. Yeah. I went in the military at 18, and I came back for them. I was running from them. Yeah. What am I doing? Right. Right. But it's that same kind of mentality. And I feel like that's what a majority of our world does, is like, you run back to what's not good. And what I should have done is said, where on this entire amazing ball would I like to be for a few years? Not forever. We think, oh, I have to go there and make a way. What if we just go somewhere and enjoy it for 5 years and figure it out? I'm doing that now with my family. We're going to, did I tell you that?
I think you mentioned that. So, you're preparing.
That's part of it. Just not being afraid to say, I don't like my situation and I'm willing to investigate. Yeah. That is learning, right? And then just allow it. Allow the investigation. This is one of my favorite conversations, to be honest, because kind of going back to what you said around the vaccine, you said inspiration, or you said something around inspire. You need feeling inspired. For me, it's like I want to be empowered around whatever decision I make. What we say is, James, my partner, and I, what we always say, are you doing this out of inspiration or desperation? And so, like, even a text message, if there's something inside, that's desperation. Right. And it's really important and it's not even just vaccine, it's birth. I remember, I'll talk about the system. I remember with my 5th baby, I went to the doctor and when in the early stages, and I was like, I'm going to have a home birth. And she's like, I've had 2 home births, but I advise against having a home birth. And I was like, did you just tell me that you had 2 home births, but you're telling me not to have a home birth? And that was like one of the last times I saw her and I had my home birth, and it was amazing. You survived? Oh, I'm still 2 years old. It's so interesting that
it's so important to make decisions out of inspiration and empowerment and not desperation and fear, because whenever you make those decisions out of that energy has to go somewhere. And if you have not healed or found a way to purge that energy, it's like when you have a bit of lemon in your water and then you get rid of the lemon, but the hint of that is still there.
Yeah.
It's going to show up. We have a comment here. I don't know who LinkedIn user is because sometimes it just doesn't show up, but I think this is a good opportunity to speak to it. So hi, Darren. Hi, Charisse and Darren. I always try and support your efforts because they're raw and positive. Thank you for the lively discussion. Thank you for being here with us. 2 items you hit the nail on are: 1, let's encourage critical thinking. I'm not always a fan of the mainstream media, and it's imperative that for young people to understand there's more than meets the eye. Absolutely. And 2, I can tell from the beginning in the manufacturing and distribution industry that there is and will be a shortage of hands-on workforce, including trucking. Yeah. So, oh my gosh.
Maybe that's because they shame labor, right? You're not supposed to be a carpenter or whatever.
Oh my gosh. I don't know who you are, LinkedIn user. Maybe we'll see it later, but like this is fire, because yes, encouraging critical thinking. This is it could be a 5-step checklist in terms of like, okay, what am I seeing? What am I feeling? Where is this coming from? Is it coming from some place of fear or inspiration? That should also be a gauge in how much attention you give it. We haven't watched the news in 5 or 6 years. We got rid of cable. It's been so awesome. And I get everything third party, so I'm able to curate what it is. And what's very interesting about getting news third party is the energy that is usually the originator of what is being told will come through that person unless they have filtered or healed themselves. So if it's like bad news that like something happened, in Oakland, and then they're telling me about it, how they're telling me is carrying the energy of the origin of the story. And then I can then curate how I want to receive that. I don't have to receive it exactly how they received it. I can be like, okay, I have a moment to take a step back versus it just being blasted at me. And I can provide myself with that critical thinking. And I agree, there will be a shortage of, we're starting to see this already. We're starting to see people around the minimum wage conversation, around, I'm pretty sure like, having to talk to your kids about working at a company. They don't want to work in the same places and spaces that were just kind of set up to provide a paycheck. And some employers believe if I'm paying you, you are mine, and you do what we say I want you to do. And people aren't prescribing to that anymore.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's all control. That stuff.
Hey, Kristen. Okay. Well, let's wrap up here, because I think we need to have another conversation, you and I, at some point.
I'm down.
I think I really think that, and I love how you're living what you're reflecting. And I think that's sometimes the funnest part. So not always the easiest, but it's the funnest part.
It's a challenge, because on the outside, no one will, the usual suspects will never respect it. And so, everyone from the outside is going, you're nuts. What are you doing? Because everything I'm doing, I'm willing to change. My living room doesn't have a couch in it. It has 12 guitars on the wall now, because that is our new life. Like this thing I'm standing in is now my portable recording studio. Yeah. I used to think of myself as a carpenter. Now I think of myself as a musician, and a lover of humanity, and so we can change, and I'm willing to just take people with me, and that's part of my LinkedIn Live when I get on that, is just sharing the fact that I'm broken and I'm working through it, and it's okay to be broken and have a comeback story, and I'll show you guys how I'm doing it. And it's important to give people tools to not be afraid to change. That's what everyone needs right now, because a lot of people need change. Post-COVID, everyone realizes they don't like where their feet are, and let's do it.
Let's do it. Why not? And I was saying this to someone else. I was like, people like you, people like me, people that are lit up inside, we are helping activate others and their light by just showing up and not, I don't know if it's purposely being different or just being different because we've gone through different things, because we see that definitely change needs to start, and change starts with us. We can't rely on, we can't expect everyone to change in the moment like that. We don't have the Thanos hand. That's not how things should work. It should work with us changing first and allowing ourselves to be activated so we can activate and help others along that journey, and whatever that journey is and whatever space and time they need. There we go. But we know that we will continue to shine light through the cracks of our brokenness. And so I'm very grateful that I met you through everything that has transpired in this world, and that you are part of my community, my tribe. Like, you are just, and I am rooting for everything that you're doing. And I just want to thank you so much for being here in the High Vibe Zone with me. And just, this conversation was great. I loved it. I'm like, we need to talk more about this stuff, because I love it. I want to give you the final word here in the High Vibe Zone before we end.
My final word would be just thank you for all the kind words you've said. Thank you for inviting me along, and including me in your tribe. Right? It's we're very different people, you and I, but have so many things where we're like-minded, and so you've included me, and I appreciate that. And that's part of what we're doing, is including people, right, too, and opening the door for conversation, and you're leading the way. So I'm honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you to everyone that has watched this amazing, amazing conversation. I want to just send you guys all off with a blessing. Thank you for being here in the High Vibe Zone with me and Darren. Sprinkle light, love, and gratitude for the rest of your day and week. Have a great day, everyone.